pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any citizens' comments tonight or anything, Kate? Okay, thank you. All right, so that brings us to Spotlight on Brentwood. Our favorite.
Favorite part of the
Our
meeting.
favorite part.
No offense to Ronnie, who'll be presenting later.
Right.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for giving me a few minutes to give you some highlights from the past month, or since the last time we were together, maybe about 3 weeks or so. So just as a reminder, we try to group these together in our 4 strategic plan buckets. So student success, school culture, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, and unified community engagement. So let's start with our first bucket, student success, and our first highlight. The Brentwood School District ranks number 7 among all public school districts in Missouri for academic achievement, and number 15 for the best places to teach in the state according to the 2026 Niche K-12 School and District Rankings. All Brentwood schools earned an A overall rating, reflecting strong academic supportive culture and family participation and partnership. Just for, I know it's like, well, what does that mean? So Niche is a website that analyzes public data and reviews to produce comprehensive rankings, report cards, and profiles of schools, universities, and neighborhoods. If you remember, last year, the city of Brentwood was the #1 city to live in Missouri. So the site ranks more than 10,000 school districts nationwide using a rigorous analysis of key statistics from the U.S. Department of Education and millions of reviews from students and families. Not millions of reviews from our families, but millions of reviews overall. We actually don't have a lot of reviews. And it sounds like, we won't name names, but some districts will promote this heavily and stack the deck with positive reviews.
So this may be something we share with PTs.
Right. Yeah, that would be good.
But ranking factors include state test scores, college readiness, graduation rates, teacher quality, and then public school district rankings and more. So just another, feather in our cap. When it's positive, we like to promote it. It's not the only measure of how successful we are. Student growth and achievement, data analysis. Ronnie will talk about data and assessment data and things like that. But when we're high up there, we like to promote it. All right. So our next one. This is Brentwood High School senior Lizzie Butler, and I was going back looking through last year's presentations as to where to put certain things that are coming up later. And it was interesting because this time last year, Lizzie Butler was a finalist in an international art competition, at which she won. So she's not just great at art, but she's also well-rounded and great at science. So let me tell you about it. This month, Brentwood High School senior Lizzie Butler presented her original research at the 2025 Biomedical Engineering Society annual meeting in San Diego. Lizzie compiled her research last summer as part of the Youth Scientist program at Washington University in St. Louis. Her project, I'm not going to read this, you can see it up at the top, and that's kind of sad because my mom and dad are very sciencey. But I'll break it down. Her project explored similarities between fruit fly and human hearts using advanced imaging technology. So very cool. Lizzie's presentation highlights the rigor, curiosity, and real-world experiences Brentwood students bring to their learning. So just a great opportunity, not only just studying at WashU over the summer and working with WashU researchers and things like that, but having such a great outcome to be selected to present to people from all over the country at San Diego. It's amazing. So, great story. All right. So the next one are two very different examples of elementary school excellence, one at the national stage and one right here in the classroom. So on the left there is McGrath fifth grader Jet Nelson, and he earned an invitation to Team USA Baseball, the 12U National Team Training Center, or training camp, placing him among the top youth athletes in the nation, a testament to his hard work, dedication, and sportsmanship. And then on the right, that is Mark Twain fourth grader Josh Gianetto, and he showed outstanding curiosity and creativity by repairing Miss Lanforseek's robot vacuum. Her name was the robot's name was Rosie. So he took the robot home, diagnosed the problem, and brought Rosie back to life. So now Rosie is in the classroom helping keep things extra clean. So just two cool examples at the elementary stage. You know, well-rounded kids. We're not just smart, but we're involved in lots of other things in athletics, and we have curiosity and things. We want to fix broken things. So good story.
Yeah, that's great.
And then we were missing ECC, so I had to put one in here. And this is just one example, but ECE has this every single day in every single classroom. I don't remember these days, but these days were great if I would remember them. Just learning through play, basically. So at the Brentwood Early Childhood Center, students are building vocabulary, practicing cooperation, and developing fine motor skills through imaginative play, all from the comfort of a classroom. Hair salon, that was this example. They were working in a hair salon with a mustache, with some extensions, with some brushes and things like that. And kudos to our teacher for hanging in there and letting them go to town. So, but just these dramatic play areas like this help our youngest learners build confidence, communication, and social emotional skills while having fun. They're learning all this stuff, but they don't really know that they're learning. They're just playing and having fun. But it's helping create that foundation of excellence and achievement as they move up through the ranks. Okay, and then moving on to school culture. And this was one we talked about last month, but we didn't know, or we didn't have the final result, but Brentwood Middle School's nature-themed float loomed its way to first place at this year's Brentwood Days Parade. So this was the second consecutive year that BMS has earned the parade's top honor, along with a cash prize of $250. And just like those previous years, that prize will support BMS's Activities Fund, helping create more opportunities for students to learn, grow, and get involved. And I think Sarah's here, and she's excited. Our students, our middle school students, the staff, the parent volunteers do a really great job. I was a little worried because you don't know what they're going to do. Like, well, the middle school can't win it again. Like, we have to give it to someone else. You don't know like what they're going to do, but it was clear when you were there that they should win it again. So,
So
So it all worked out.
until someone else from the city brings their A game to their float design, I feel like our middle school has a lock on it. But congratulations to them. And then on Friday, October 31st, the city will come by and do a check presentation like they did last year. So, and we'll be there to cover that. All right, and then on to unified community engagement. Our first one, we've had a lot of great athletics-related community engagement stories. So this is some shots from the Volley for a Cure event that we had. So Brentwood High School's Volley for a Cure brought students, families, and community members together for a great cause. Fans packed the gym in pink to support breast cancer awareness and cheer our Eagles on to victory. The event combined school spirit and service, raised funds for breast cancer awareness efforts, and the Brentwood High School Future Business Leaders of America to help them go to competitions and registration fees and things like that. So, right there, Debbie Stinson, she sang the national anthem. I know Lindsay was there. There were great pictures of you, but I was like, I tried to use pictures of someone else every now and then.
I think you should have had Margot, who just kept
Her-
adding
Yeah,
layers,
added, yeah.
You could get your face
layers of her
painted.
being
She did
out
her
throughout the
entire
game. She just kept
face.
adding. She had
Awesome.
stuff on her cheeks, and then she came back with on her nose, and then
Yeah,
it was the whole
the
face
whole face.
by the end of the first game.
But kudos to Jamesia Tuiava, our new athletic and activities director. She's been doing a great job putting these type of community engagement events together. And then just looking forward into the winter sports season, we've already got some things on the burner, looking at what we can do, how do we get the 612 involved, but also bring in elementary school kids, like having elementary school nights for basketball games and things like that. So we've already got those wheels turning. So community members, all you guys, be on the lookout for that kind of stuff coming up.
So are they still wearing pink on
Wednesdays.
every Wednesday through the month of October?
Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, I think that
Great.
was the thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and they're wearing a lot
Yeah.
of those shirts. We're still selling them. If anybody wants
Oh,
one,
they
you can
are,
get one.
okay, good.
Yep. And then, but yeah, you see it around the school. It's really
That's
cool.
great,
It's
yeah,
really
I
cool.
love it.
All right, so our next one, and this is a funny photo. So it looks bad, but it's not. So don't be alarmed. Don't be alarmed.
I have to say, I actually drove up that morning and saw the police cars, and I momentarily forgot it was career day, and I had like a panic attack.
Oh, gosh.
I was like, oh my God, what happened? What happened? But yes, it is
Yeah,
it's
so
a good story.
yes, please don't be alarmed. This is all planned. This is all part of the show. This is a photo from Brentwood Middle School's 4th annual Career Day, which connected students with more than 20 professionals from a wide range of fields. Speakers represented just things like mechanical engineering, biomedical research, cognitive neuroscience, cybersecurity, software engineering, and other dynamic careers. So students gained a firsthand look at how classroom learning translates to real-world opportunities, and just kudos to Ann Bashi and Natalie Sellers for putting this on and organizing this and getting all of our community volunteers together. And we love our partnership with the Brentwood Police Department, so those guys are great, and they have all their gear, and sometimes they have kids run up and down, not on High School Drive, but up and down the sidewalk with the radar gun to see how fast they're running. And, sometimes they bring donuts, so this is like one that the kids really like to go to just because it's very hands-on and cool. So,
And that gentleman standing next to Officer Hobby is our new Officer Pettit, our new SRO.
Yep.
Oh, that's
Nice.
Yeah.
great.
All right, and then, so we had a middle school one, but we also had high school senior career day. So Brentwood High School's annual senior career day gave the class of 2026 a hands-on look at life beyond high school, connecting students with professionals from across the St. Louis region. Sessions covered soft skills, financial planning, conflict management, adaptability, and finding your passion, led by experts from St. Louis University, Northwestern Mutual, the St. Louis Blues, Express Scripts, and our very own Dr. Andrew Miller, who led the conflict management session, which we'll talk about just here in a second. But this photo, students participated or practiced communication skills and mock interviews with Brentwood staff and administrators. So just a valuable step toward college and career readiness. And I checked in with Emily Diaz, that she was the one that got everything organized and put it together. And I wanted to check in because I wanted to make sure I recognized anyone that was involved in it. And she said, we did a follow-up survey with with the kids that participated to give feedback. And I said, oh, that's interesting. How was it? And she said, oh, it was really good. I said, give me a few. So let me read them to you. So feedback from students. I think it was overall a great event. I really appreciated the engaging sessions and the real-world financial advice. So next one. I found the mock interviews were very helpful for immediate feedback. The soft skills were great for using in professional and everyday life, and I really enjoyed the speaker for conflict management and understanding the role of human resources a little more. Who doesn't like Andrew Miller?
Right.
Perfect person to lead conflict management. just
Amazing.
wonderful. And then two more. Thank you so much for everything you do to take care of and prepare us. It doesn't go unnoticed. Today was a fun time. And then mock interviews were fun, engaging, and rewarding. The conflict management was also super engaging and fun. And the financial planning was extremely educational and beneficial. So just some words directly from our students to kind of round out why we do this event and why we're here and why we prepare them for their future to give them a leg up. And when they start thinking about post-secondary careers and post-secondary pathways, what are the options out there? And there are quite a few. So we try to expose them to as many as we can.
I love that.
All right. Any questions? Thanks again for your time.
Thank
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Appreciate
All
it.
right.
Can I ask an off-topic question?
Yeah.
My computer has forgotten the password for the Wi-Fi. Does anybody know it?
Is it
Used
the
to be
guest?
on the-
Is it
Guest
the
2018.
Yeah, if it's-
Guest,
yeah.
guest with a capital G, 2018.
Yes with a capital G.
It's
Thank
not
you.
a password at all, is it? We got a strong Wi-Fi here.
And my computer's showing.
Good.
I guess
Share with Mark. All right, can we do a roll call, please?
Mark Cicero,
Here.
Dave Clark,
Here.
Brian Dawson, Brian Flynn.
Here.
Steve Rivenberg,
Here.
Katie Stahl,
Here.
Lindsey Scott.
Thank you. If I could get a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as outlined.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's approved. It takes us to superintendent's report.
Wonderful. So first up, we have Dr. Zagora to present our district data. We didn't do one of these presentations last year for, I think, no other reason than I was new. So, but I think this is something that, I would encourage us to continue to do each year. We will be getting our APR November 7th. Yeah, we should be getting our preliminary report here in the next couple weeks, and then it'll be made public. But the APR is a kind of combination of a bunch of different things, and I think it's really important that we share kind of our district level data and how our students are performing. Also want to show you some of our new tools that we're using that the board has approved us to purchase, like EduClimber. So Ronnie's going to walk us through all of that. And the heart of what we do here is teaching and learning, and I think it's important that we spend some time in board meetings discussing it. So, all you.
All right. I'm going to sit if that's okay, because I'm going to be toggling between a couple of different things here to show you. So thank you for having me this evening. I want to start, so last year when I shared information about our assessment committee that was meeting as we were choosing our new benchmark assessment, I shared kind of our philosophy on assessments in the district and how our goal is to always assess as infrequently as possible but with the most meaningful data. So this is very bird's eye view tonight. We have so much granular data that we can get into, but I just want to show you district level, the two main assessment buckets. One being our Missouri Assessment Program, or the MAP test that our students take every spring, and then also our benchmark local assessments that we use, which starting this year is iReady for elementary and NWEA for 6 through 12. So just as a reminder of what the state assessment program is, here we've got just the basic elements of the MAP program. So all of our students in grades 3 through 8 take a spring assessment in English Language Arts and math. They also take a science assessment in 5th and 8th grade. At the high school level, our students take end of course exams at the end of English 2, so 10th grade English. Algebra, which for some of our students actually happens in 8th grade. They take that algebra test in 8th grade, then they have to take Algebra 2, end of course exam in high school. But for most of our students, that algebra test would be in 9th grade. Biology and U.S. government. So those are all of the required assessments from the state. It is a summative assessment, so it's basically measuring how well is our district doing when it comes to the state Missouri learning standards. And so they take it in the spring, we get those scores several months later. By then the students are in a whole new grade level or in a whole new school. And so it's a nice, we always jokingly call it an autopsy report because there's not a lot you can do with it once you have it. It's like, well, here's how you did, and, hope it's good, but we're moved on, we're already teaching new things. But it is, I think, still a really nice indicator of the health of our district when it comes to student learning. And so we have a wonderful district here. We do very well on our math assessments. So for 24-25, we got those scores late this summer. Our English language arts, 74% of our students scored at the top 2 levels. So there are 4 levels on the MAP test. There's below basic, basic, proficient, and advanced. And on the state report card or APR, they're looking for what proportion of your students score in that proficient or advanced, those top 2 levels. So for us, it was 74% of our students in ELA, 67% in math, and for comparison's sake, I put what the state proficiency scores were. And those state scores are actually from 2024 because the statewide data is not yet public. It doesn't vary a whole lot year to year. It usually hovers around that 40% range of statewide students that score in those top 2 levels. So, yeah.
So when you say the state proficiency is only 41%, that means either 41% of all the programs are only hitting proficiency. Does that also include the advanced or no?
Yeah, so what that means is of all the students in the state that take the MAP test, only 41.4% earn proficient or advanced. So one of those top 2 levels.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the sample, in this data, is this include all schools, private schools as well, or is this just
This
public
is
schools?
Missouri Public Schools.
Just public
So
schools.
that's one
Yeah.
of the things too, when we talk about like one of the concerns people have around taxes and school choice, private schools don't have to take, they are not held accountable to any of the same tests that public schools are. And that's usually one of the sticking points or talking points when you have any conversation around that, is that they're not taking the same test, or they're not being held at the same level, to the same accountability from the state. So
Okay.
from a financial standpoint, that's usually one of the arguments you'll hear.
So I asked Amy if I could show off EduClimber tonight because you all very generously approved the purchase of EduClimber, which is our data visualization tool. And so we have started to use it this year, and it is incredible, and it allows us to see our data, not just our academic data, also our social emotional data, attendance, behavior incidents, all of those things. So I put together a collection just for this presentation tonight to show you how it can visualize our data for us, and then how we can also just take different views of that. So these first 2 boxes here at the top are our spring MAP scores, so from spring of 25. And what I did is I pulled out those scores for the last 3 years.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this evening for our first night of parent-teacher conferences. Right now, it's about time to wrap up your final conversations and head out. We thank you again so much for joining us here at Brentwood High School, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.
Pack up and go home. Okay. So what I did on these tables here is I wanted to show you just the last 3 years worth of data, because one thing that EduClimber is really good at is it gives us a nice trend that we can look at, and there are other ways to visualize this as more of a line graph and trends over time. But where it's very useful in terms of putting out information to our community is that obviously you've got like some nice color coding here, so that would be our advanced, our proficient, basic, and below basic. And then also we can switch this over, and this is more how the state would view it, is met or did not meet. So that's our proficient and advanced combined, and then our basic and below basic combined, and so that gives us that total percentage. And you can see we've been very consistent over time. But I always like to look at the breakdowns as much as possible, because it's not enough to look at a student of like, yes, you hit the mark or you didn't, but where did you fall within that range, and how can we always help students grow? So that is an example for ELA. I did the same thing over here for math, just showing over 3 years' time how our proportions have stayed very steady and our performance is very strong. So jumping back over here to, and this is another way that we can look at it as well, just looking at them as separate bars. So now, before I move on, any questions about MAP or the state test?
Who has access to the EduClimber?
So we have, every certified district employee can log in and use it. It's actually extremely intuitive, which is wonderful. We have trained all of our principals, counselors, and intervention teachers. I have also now introduced it to our curriculum committee, curriculum coordinators, and our grade level leads. And so there's a cohort of teachers and teacher leaders that
have been shown kind of the basics of how to log in and what they can use it for, but it is open to, we all have logins because it's just our Google login, and so I've encouraged any teacher that wants to, like, you can't, what's great is you can't screw anything up in there. Like, you can't manipulate, you can't change anything, all you can do is view it. So we do have quite a few teachers that here in the first couple of months of school have reached out to me and like, hey, I saw this, like, intervention tool or this form, like, can I start using that? And I'm just, yes, like, my answer is yes, 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 because the more expertise we build, then the more we'll learn from each other. But they started to use it a little bit in professional learning communities as they have some of those like problem-solving meetings, because you can pull up a full student profile and you can see everything about that student historically and current data. So it's incredibly useful. Yeah.
So does that just show our data, or are you able to slice down and look at some comparable school districts as well to see where we kind of?
Yeah. So it just shows ours, but all of our academic data, you can look at it in a variety of ways. You can look at raw scores, you can look at growth over time, or you can look at national percentiles.
So you can't get down at more granular to understand, our comparable districts, the districts that are around us, where we fall.
From nationally normed, like
Just from the,
you can't. This is our data. You can have national norms, so
Okay.
that tells you that there is a data visualization tool, and the state's actually looking at another one so that you could get that does something similar, so you could compare different school districts in that way. There's the one they have now is actually not that bad, but that's not what EduClimber. EduClimber is more for an internal. The purpose for it is really, and I've used it for years. The purpose is really for, ideally, to help us figure out like what's working and what are, like, you can put collections together of students. You can look, like if I'm looking at a student's whole picture of, okay, well, they're not doing very good academically, but I can also see, hey, their attendance is also really bad. Like, you can pull multiple different sources of data to then to be able to say, well, maybe we've got to address the attendance problem before some of the other issues. PLCs that Ronnie talked about, that's a really powerful place too to be using. It took me about 3 years in Ladue to get us to a place where the EduClimber was used regularly in PLCs, just to look at the data, dig down, and kind of help you group, like, okay, so these students need a little bit more intensive. Like the students that are in the red, what is their growth looking like? Maybe they're in the red, but maybe they've shown tremendous growth, and it's just not yet at grade level. So it's much more for an internal dialogue, not external.
Yeah, and where it's been really powerful thus far is our intervention teachers that in the past have kept their own data walls, essentially a spreadsheet that has a massive amount of data of all the different screeners that our students may take who get intervention services, and then also their progress monitoring as they implement those interventions, and all of that now can be produced for them by EduClimber instead of manually putting all of that into spreadsheets.
Huge efficiency.
Yeah. Okay, so our local assessment data, this is what I call our benchmark data that we collect 3 times a year. So historically until this year, we were using NWEA in grades K through 12 in both reading and math. This year we, for the first time, started using iReady for K through 5, still using NWEA 6 through 12. So we give these assessments in fall, winter, and spring. And both of these assessments, iReady and NWEA, give us great information both about achievement, both raw score achievement, national percentiles, both are widely used, taken by millions of students across the country. So the national percentile data is very helpful because these are robust assessments. And then it also measures growth over time. And so what we can use it for student growth is we can look fall to spring. Generally the expected growth, both of these assessments would say, is they expect students to grow 1 grade level standards in 1 year's time. So that's always kind of the standard that we're hoping to hit, unless we're working with a student who maybe is a couple of grade levels behind, and then we need to accelerate their learning to try to close that gap. So these assessments are really helpful because they give us immediate specific feedback. As soon as a student finishes that assessment, we can pull up their report. We can see not just what their score is, but it will break it down by standard in reading or math, specifically what the strengths and the areas of growth are for that student. One of the awesome features about iReady that our teachers have started to use is that iReady will also provide instructional groupings of your students based on their level of performance in iReady. So they took that fall screener in math, for example, and then iReady would populate some groups and say, these students need to work on these skills, these students are ready to enrich their skills here. And so it really supports differentiation in the classroom and planning instruction very intentionally based on the information that we have about students. And then I-Ready also, as I mentioned last year when we were adopting it, it meets the state requirement as our foundational literacy screener for students in grades K through 3. So it's been really helpful for that as well.
That way we had to move away from NWA
Yes.
because they did not meet the state.
Right, the state did not approve them, choose them as, yeah. So this is bird's eye view of our NWEA growth and achievement from last year. So remember last year, K through 12, we're all using NWEA. And I know it's very tiny there to see, but essentially the top bar, the top section there is for reading. That top bar shows you our growth. And so what NWEA measures is where do our students fall in terms of expected growth. And then they give us the median, and then they give us those performance levels. So NWEA is separated into quintiles. And so those percentile scores, the red is going to be students who fell between 1 and 19%, and then 20 to 39%, 40 to 59%, 60 to 79, and then 80 and above. And then the bar beneath that where you see it split into two, that's fall and spring. So again, this is district level, so it's showing you just a big overview. But what we look for in this is, in the macro, we're looking for, how are we doing generally? Are most of our students performing at least 40th percentile and above? Because that 40 to 59th percentile, that is what NWA would consider the average range. And we are, certainly well above the expected there when it comes to percentile. You can see those little bubbles at the front, and I can't read from here, but I know they're in the 70 something. Those are median scores. Those are very high for median scores to be in the 77th percentile. So reading and math, and then I'm going to show you a little bit more of a breakdown of what that means. So last year, our reading scores, again, this would be K through 10. Our high school students do NWA in 9th and 10th grade. We don't give it in 11th and 12th because there are so many other assessments. We have our pre-ACT, our practice SAT, we have the practice ACT, and of course exams are happening. There's a lot of assessment happening at the 11th and 12th grade level. So we measure them in fall and winter to get that good data about who needs support and in what areas. So last year, these were the final assessment the students took. So for elementary and middle, that would have been in the spring. For high school, that's in the winter, again, because they're taking a lot of end-of-course tests in the spring. So very high percentages of our students that are in that average range or higher. And then it also measures our growth. And so what NWA is measuring for growth, again, is 1 year's growth in standards in 1 year's time. And where I think a lot of districts have very similar experiences as we do, which is growth can be phenomenal for students who are already maybe a little behind or are challenged. We see amazing growth, but where a district like ours really needs to zero in is how are we growing our students who come in as high achievers. And so oftentimes that's the growth area that's the most difficult to, it's a little harder to move our needle with students who are already coming in with a lot of mastery. And so that's something that we've started to use this data to look at, is who's already landing in that high achievement percentile, and then how do we meet that growth score? How do we introduce some more enriching material to challenge them with the next grade level standards? It's also one reason that we kept NWEA at grades 6 through 12, is that it gives us performance all the way through 12th grade level. So a student taking the NWEA, let's say for example, they're a 7th grader taking the math, it is going to give them tougher and tougher questions until the results tell us where do they top out with their math knowledge. So it may be they're only in 7th grade, but they're already showing algebra 2 mastery. So that helps us differentiate and really know where we can enrich students who are coming in with high achievement. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
So, elementary and high school, 51%. Why the discrepancy with
Yeah.
middle school?
So it's actually a logistical difference.
Okay.
In elementary, our kindergarten students in the past with NWA did not take it in the fall. They waited until winter. So that number includes all of the elementary students, but actually the kindergartners can't have a growth score because they didn't take a baseline in the fall. And so I honestly, I don't know how to disaggregate that in a way that will reflect it. So that's my little asterisk there, that students who don't take the assessment in the fall, they don't actually get a growth score reported. And then at the high school level, because we don't get it in the spring, so we don't have that full year measure. And so the growth, what they're taking as a year's growth is actually where we cut them off in the winter with that score. So their fall to winter growth. So it is, yeah, so I share this with you to explain what the growth scores mean, but I also would not put a whole lot of stock in either the elementary or the high school numbers here, because that is not a true fall, winter, spring measure for those students.
Okay.
So it could be higher
Yes.
for both.
If
is
you
what
pulled
you're saying,
out
if you had
those-
it
If we
in
pulled
there.
out the
That's what I'm trying-
kindergartners,
yeah,
that
I wanna
elementary
see-
percentage
you
would
wanna
be
see
quite a bit higher.
continued
Yes.
growth,
Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
our
Yeah.
middle and
So
high
there,
school,
it's
right?
Yes.
lower than we think
So-
it is, yeah.
Yes. And really that growth data is most important at the classroom level. That's what our teachers look at, is if we're seeing that a student is not making growth, whether they started low, middle, or high, we're looking at how we can push that growth forward.
We used to always say, like, the growth score is really like the thing that teachers can own. You know, you have kids that walk in
Right, yeah.
proficient. And so for a teacher, it really helps you be able to see, like, how while they're with you, you're able to see what impact your instruction is able to have.
Just
So
to jump
that's
in.
what the growth score is for, is to see how far you can push them past where they started.
Yes.
Mhm.
So all the teachers do have access to this tool when they're setting up their class and they're reviewing the
They have all this
students.
data.
And they use it very regularly. So their PLC conversations are based around this data.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and here's the one confusing thing about EduClimber that we cannot fix, and EduClimber can't fix for us. So there are actually two assessments called MAP. The NWEA assessment is actually called the NWEA MAP Growth. So in EduClimber, it shows up as MAP, which is very confusing because we already have a MAP test. So to clarify for us,
It's
what they've
only
done
our
is
state that's a problem.
Missouri
right?
Assessment Program is our Missouri state test, and then what they just call MAP is actually NWEA, and I don't know why this can't be fixed,
It
but.
stands for mean, because I talked to Trip Hammer about this. It is.
Yeah, so
And
we
you
would
can't
love to
change
just
it
label it
because they
NWA, but they
auto-
can't, they
automatically.
can't change it for us, and so anyway, similar to the MAP test, these show over time spring scores for students, so you can get an idea of our proportions of those achievement levels. Very strong achievement levels. These are middle school levels, and then we get up here to high school levels. And so again, you also can change it. You can look at it as a benchmark of like hitting that average or above or below.
And at the teacher, and you maybe we're going to share this later, so I don't want to steal your thunder, but it's like my favorite part. You can click on the boxes and get the names of the kids that are in the box.
Yes.
So like as a teacher, I start here, and then you get to keep digging deeper and deeper to see to where it's the actual student.
I'll
So you
put
have
Do you do
myself
the high
in.
school level?
I'll put myself in top secret mode here so I can show you that.
I don't know why I like it. I mean, I do know why I like it so much because it's what I used to do, but it's very,
It's so much data.
yes.
It is. So I'll jump down. So
Oh,
we'll
it's a
take.
measure of academic progress.
Thank you. So I can click into, for example, let's say our students who were in the bottom quintile for high school reading. I put it in top secret mode, so student names won't show up, they're just numbers. But then you can, it would give you, yeah.
Teachers would see their
It would
kids'
give
names,
you
but
the
you can do it.
names, and then you can also pull up more student detail with that score. It shows you a little bit more. It'll show you their Lexile level. This is the reading test. So there's quite a bit of data that you get with each student. It gets into their sub-skills because all of these tests have multiple components, and so reading and writing, informational text, literary text, vocabulary, and so on. So many, many layers to EduClimber, and we've just scratched the surface at this point, but it's, if you like data like I do, it's a lot of fun.
Ronnie and I nerd out about
Very
this
good.
stuff. This is why we chose to move to the EduClimber
Mhm.
platform. We were both very familiar with it, and it's just very user-friendly and lots of great information that can help guide conversations. One of my former data people always talked about good data should make you ask questions, not provide answers. And so when you have all of this data at your fingertips, you get to spend more time asking the questions of what can we do to help our students, and where can we work to accelerate that growth that we need to see. And so we're very excited about it. So thanks for approving it. We are grateful.
It's good to see it.
Yes, it's very good.
this is the same data for NWA math. So again, this is last year's scores, average range or higher by spring, or for our high school group by winter. And then our growth scores, again, the same asterisk there, our kindergartners who didn't take it. And then the last thing, actually, let me jump back. The last thing I want to show you, because, for elementary, NWA is old news now. We've moved on to iReady. So I wanted to show you just a side-by-side, and if you are a parent of an elementary school student, then you got a letter with your student scores explaining this. But iReady also gives us a really nice color-coded breakdown, but the terminology that they use for those iReady benchmark assessments is different from NWEA. And so iReady is really tying a student's performance to where they fall in the grade level expectations, using the language of their early on grade level, their mid or above grade level, their one grade level below. And so one thing that we put out an accompanying infographic and letter with iReady scores for families, because many of our students fall into this yellow category because it's the beginning of the school year. And so they haven't yet learned those grade level standards. So if I'm a second grader and I took an iReady test the second week of second grade, I probably don't yet know second grade math skills unless I was advanced the year before. And so what they call it is one grade level below. But basically what that's telling us is they mastered first grade. They're now in this in-between first and second. And so the iReady goals that it sets for individual students is it sets an annual progress goal. We would expect you to make this much growth in this time. And it also sets what's called a stretch goal for students. And so that is if the student needs to close a gap in their learning, then they'd be aiming for that stretch goal. And that is, we're probably not using that language with students at this point, and that's appropriate because we just want our students to enjoy learning. But it's really helpful for teachers, and it can be helpful for parents as well, because iReady gives incredibly granular breakdown of where students' skills are in the grade level standards. And it provides also instructional resources to support growth in those areas. So what we would hope to see, this is just our fall administration of iReady, and I just pulled math as a sample here. We would expect to see by spring, we'd have a lot more green on that bar and less yellow, orange, and red.
So are you ultimately excited about iReady?
Yes.
Even like you do think it's a better product than NWA?
Yes.
I think it's much more teacher friendly. So we did this very similar. Everybody in the state that had been using NWEA moved to iReady, and so we're about a year ahead of this conversation. And iReady just provides teachers with such, when Ronnie says granular, NWEA, I always think it's like very esoteric to some example. Like it's harder to dig into, and iReady just is like, here's the groups. These kids struggle on the same. You want some ideas? Here's the ideas of what to do as a teacher. It just feels, I think, much more teacher friendly.
Yes.
And language, like who knows what I'm even forgetting a RIT score. Like the language of on grade level, below grade level, ready for grade level is much more everybody friendly than like RIT scores where you're trying to like, well, what is on, is it a 250 or 189? Like what is that? It's just not natural language that we're used to using. So I do think in the long run, although it was a little irritating the process that we had to go through for the legislation, I actually think it's probably it has us in a better place.
And the ease with which teachers can access that information is so much better than, NWA, they get the score reports. If you have learned the sequence of clicks to get to what you need, they do have what you need ultimately, but iReady really just puts it out in such a usable format, and it's very easy to find, and it's immediate. I mean, it's like the student clicks submit, they're done taking their test, and then right away we can see those scores. And it will also flag students who are moving too fast. It will give the students a little warning, like you're clicking through too fast, slow it down. But then it will also flag them in our reports so that we know that we may want to have that student retake that assessment if they zip through it too fast.
That's good.
In fact, one of the settings you put in Edge Climber is test duration. How long did they take to take it? Lots and lots of data. All right, so to close out, I just wanted to wrap up with what do we do with all of this? So, of course, our interventionists review the data. I'm actually going to jump ahead a slide. We use it at the individual student level as part of our multi-tiered systems of support. So, tiers 1, 2, and 3, and I know we've talked a little bit about this with the board in the past, but tier 1 is that core classroom instruction that is going to bring most students along to learn grade level standards in 1 year's time by the end of the year, and that's going to hit about 80 to 85% of our students. For students who are showing up on assessments that they're not quite keeping pace or they're not mastering grade level standards at that rate, then we do some additional screening and maybe put those students in some targeted small group instruction. And so that would be our tier 2. And that would be the work that our interventionists do. They're doing tiers 2 and 3. Sometimes that's small group, and then sometimes that small group isn't quite enough and that student needs maybe more one-on-one or one-on-2, really intensive intervention. And so that, the assessment data is used to help inform us, firstly, do we need more information? Because we know a data point is just a snapshot on a particular day of how a student did. And we all have our days where we're not performing our best. So if a student flags on one of these assessments that we use, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk to the teacher. What else do you know about this student? Is this a student we need to collect a little bit more data on to see if they need additional support? So our interventionists lead those conversations. They will administer additional assessments as needed. Sometimes it might just be a paper pencil, like our math interventionist will pull a kid in and like, hey, I've got 5 problems here. Let's see how you do with those. And sometimes it is a more in-depth, like a fast bridge reading assessment, for example. So we'll use the data to tell us who needs to be screened additionally, who might need some targeted small group instruction. A lot of that tier 2 instruction takes place in the classroom. So it's not pulled out to a separate space, but it is an intervention teacher, or sometimes it's a special educator pushing in and working with a targeted group of students on targeted skills. And I would be willing to bet that somebody who doesn't know any better would walk into that classroom and probably not even know that that's what was happening, because there's always small group instruction happening, and sometimes there are 2, maybe 3 adults in the classroom that are working with students. So we use it in support of our MTSS system to support student growth. Our professional learning communities review their data in roughly monthly meetings to determine, is the curriculum that we're using working? Is the instructional strategy that we tried, is that working? The interventionist teachers come into those PLCs to talk through their work with the students. I had mentioned already those iReady reports help inform day-to-day instruction. They create instructional groups. They provide lesson and activity ideas for teachers. Sometimes they'll even provide a template that you can put directly in front of a student. If it's, hey, this student, you need to target this particular reading skill with this student. Here's a passage they can read and some activities they can do with it. And so that skill-specific data is really what drives our student growth, because we are so fortunate here in Brentwood that we have the instructional personnel that can really lead that work with our students. And so it's been really fun and exciting to dig in, both with EduClimber and having iReady, and even our NWEA data, having a better understanding of how to use it. Because the assessment itself is really useful, but when you don't revisit it, you just give it and you get that report, and you don't know that, oh, I can drill down even further and I can see those grade level standards. Making sure that we have revisited that learning piece of NWA, because we can do a lot of the same things with that.
Yeah, I've got a question,
Yeah.
kind of regarding the interventionist. But what about on the flip side? What about if we have a student that is excelling, is already performing at the next grade level? What
Mhm.
is that interventionist pyramid opposite?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah. So it really, the pyramid is the same. It's
Okay.
just that instead of, the interventionist would be doing enrichment instead
Yeah,
of
right.
instead of
Okay.
skill intervention with those students. And we have come to a really good place where a lot of our conversations with our PLCs and our intervention teams are on that exact question.
Good.
That we have really strong systems in place. We have great safety nets for students who maybe aren't hitting the mark with grade level standards. But we've got the resources to support those students who need more enrichment as well. And so math is always an easy example just because the data is more apparent in math, but that's a great example of where our math interventionists, in some cases when they're pushing into the classroom, they're working with the enrichment group. So the classroom teacher is doing the intervention and the math specialist is doing some enrichment. Our new gifted teacher is going to be supporting some of that. I've actually had a couple of teachers reach out this year and say, hey, can I get access to the next grade level math resources? Because I've got 4 kids in my room and they're just ready to go. So I think those conversations are happening more frequently, and the data is so helpful in that, because if we see that a student has mastered grade level standards on the fall assessment, I will tell you as a parent, I would be asking that question, like, now what? They've already hit the mark on all of this, so what can we do next? And so really, it should be happening, and I'll be honest, it's not gonna happen in equal portions, enrichment and intervention, because the priority will be closing the gap with students who are not quite at that level. But I do feel really good about the direction we're headed with enrichment.
And the iReady does provide, so the resources it ties to this also provides enrichment resources. So when it says this group of students is ready to learn this, it includes enrichment. So it's not just for students that are closing the gap. So, which I think is really helpful for teachers, because sometimes it's just, they want to meet the needs and they want to provide enrichment, they just don't know exactly what to do. Yeah. So again, providing those resources to make it easier, and then be able to share those with one another, I think is great. Any other questions for
Thank you.
I think this is a huge celebration, though. We have really great data, and their trend is continuing. Our teachers are doing an amazing job with our students academically, and we're putting some systems in place to hopefully help support them to do that more efficiently. Teaching is a very hard job, and so anything we can do to help them maximize their time and the effort that they're doing to help kids. So thank you for putting that together. Yeah. Do you hear a theme of what we're really happy about?
It is wonderful.
I
don't know if there's another presentation I need to bring up.
If, when you have used EduClimber and you've had it for a long time, I think both Rodney and I last year felt very, well, I'm gonna use my voice. I felt very like, where is it? Like, I need it. Like you get very used to it and very reliant, and it is a wonderful tool to look big picture as well as individual. Oh, I gotta do this. Okay, this one's me. Guest 2020. Capital G.
Did you get kicked off? I got kicked off.
That's weird that everybody's getting kicked off.
You want me to share it with you?
It's just
I'm sharing it with you.
2008.
Capital G.
You want to share? I was thinking.
It's trying.
I will just do this.
We're all sharing tonight. It's good. Okay, so it is that time of year again where we are preparing for the next board election. We will have three. This is the year of three openings.
3 seats.
Thank you, 3 seats. It's been a long day. So just like we did last year, I did streamline this presentation a little bit. This comes to us from our MSBA, but we wanted to provide the opportunity to just update our community. I know Tony will be having this recorded so that if we need to share it with anybody that they are also able to see this. But just update our community on what it means to serve on the board and what the expectations are. So this is probably a repeat for all of you that are in this room as you're serving, but just for the audience and the good of everybody. Just remembering our Board of Education is 7 members, and it is the governing body for our community's public school. The major functions of a school board are to set policy, select the superintendent of schools, which I am very grateful that you did, adopt the annual budget, and then determine the tax rate. So those are the big pieces. The board has 1 employee, and that is me, and then kind of provides me the general direction and expectation for how to operate the school district. The board is involved in governance, and the superintendent is involved in the day-to-day operations. Every board member, the election is for a 3-year term. Those terms overlap, and as I said, we are up to the year where it is 3 seats this year, and then it's 2 seats next year, and then 2 seats the following year. These are our current board members that we see in this room, and then we have wonderful Kate Hastings, who is the administrative assistant, who will help anyone who is interested in running for the board, make sure that they have the appropriate paperwork and all of the things filled out for anyone who's interested. This is our district administration, also many of whom are in this room right now, also referred to as the cabinet. And this group works very closely with the board in making sure to update you on the work of each department, and making sure that the board is making informed decision and learning anything that they need to know from these different departments. So for the requirements, so for anyone interested in running for the board, there are some requirements that they must meet. They must be a citizen of the United States. You must be a resident, tax-paying member of the Brentwood School District. You must have resided in the district and in Missouri for a minimum of 1 year prior to the election, and the election will be in April. So since April of 2025, you will have had to have lived here. You must be at least 24 years of age, and you cannot be delinquent on your income taxes or really any of your taxes on your state residence. Yes?
It's been so long since I did this, but does district check to make sure that all of these things are met on all the people who, or you just take their word for it?
Well, a lot of the documents you have to fill out.
Provide you with that information.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't pay my state income taxes, I guess we don't really know that.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
don't you sign something that's saying you paid your taxes?
I think you have to, I think it's a lot of honesty, like, yeah, you have to send it in that you did all of these things. Does the Board of Election then check it maybe?
yeah, they'll look at things,
Yeah. I think it's a lot of you signing and saying you need these things.
I do need all those things. I really
Yeah,
Hey, we may need to look a little closer on a couple of these things.
I just barely need these.
Yeah.
Just
started.
Yeah. I think the Board of Elections, that we just gather the information and submit it to them. Some other requirements, if you have ever been a corporate officer, that office cannot own any taxes to the state. You also cannot have been found guilty or pled guilty of a felony under the federal laws of the U.S. or Missouri, or if something would be considered a felony in Missouri in a different state. You are not, cannot be a registered sex offender. This other one is a new one, actually. If you'll remember, we approved this policy by state law, that you cannot have been found guilty or pled guilty to assault in the first or second degree or harassment in the first or second degree on school district grounds. Apparently it's okay on other grounds, just not school district grounds. And you have to file, you're required, there's a campaign disclosure report with the Missouri Ethics Commission that needs to be signed. Time commitment is a big one. This is a volunteer position, as you all know. So to be clear, it is not a paid position. It is a volunteer position, and we are grateful for the volunteers. We have 2 meetings a month. We have 2 scheduled meetings. Sometimes one will get canceled for our policy or workshop. But we have our policy or workshop meetings are the first Tuesdays of the month, and then our business meetings are on the 3rd Tuesdays of the month. It can change or be adjusted slightly for things like spring break, but we typically put the dates out the school year in advance. There is usually also a summer board workshop that is a full day, but the meetings are typically between 2 and 3 hours. If we could stick to that 2, that'd be great. We try to be efficient. Meeting prep, you will get a board packet. The attempt is to get that information to you a week beforehand, but often that is a little bit challenging, particularly in certain areas where we're working to the last minute and hiring and getting everything up and running. But the board packet will be provided through the Assembly website where we keep everything, and if anything changes, you should be getting emails that tell you as new things are added, and it is asked that you review those before coming to the board meeting to be prepared with any questions or things that you'd like to ask. There is also a weekend update that board members receive, and it is asked that you read that too, and it gives updates about what's going on in the district. It's just a couple pages, so not anything too, I hope it's not too dense. And then there is a new board member training that is expected for 18 and a half hours. It is mandated by state law. Kate will also help you get signed up for those hours to make sure that you work through those. I will have to beat Katie Clark and how quickly she got hers done.
That's right.
So we've got a new record in place. And then ongoing training, there is 1 hour for every year. Every year you're required to do 1 hour. It's mandated by state law. There are also special workshops and other things that we do. We can provide professional development or training if there are topics that the board would like to learn about. We also have voluntary opportunities. There's 4 of us headed to Kansas City this week to go to the MSBA conference. There's MSBA PLCs that you can join. So there's a lot of additional voluntary professional development if there are certain areas that you find interesting. And then additional time commitments, there are some committee works, we have board advisories, and it is asked that every board member serve on at least one board advisory. And then, of course, one of the primary roles is also as an ambassador of the district, in the hope that you're out there being a presence at different, events when you can be, and just, being a great cheerleader for the school district and all of the different things. And that's very flexible in how it works with your time in your life. Board meetings, if you want to know what they are like, you can attend the next board meeting, which is November 18th at 7 p.m. All of you will be there. Or you can watch the live stream that is provided for every single board meeting, board business meeting at least. And then again, as I said before, your board packet you receive a week in advance. Board meeting, we do have closed session, which is typically where hiring or legal topics come up, or any kind of personnel issues will come up in closed session. Those are closed to the public, and we have one of those before each of the meetings. We try to have them before if at all possible. And they lasted about an hour and start typically at 6 o'clock. But if it is a light agenda, we will push that back to 6:30 with the board business meeting starting at 7. There is a public comment time of every board meeting. We start with celebrations of the business meetings with our spotlight on Brentwood and any special recognition. Some of the great things about serving on the board are getting to do things like the student recognition nights, which are once a semester, where we bring in people to celebrate the accomplishments of our students. And then we go through a consent agenda, which are really the kind of the general bills of the district, things that happen every month, or kind of ongoing, some MOUs that are kind of standard that get approved. And then there's the superintendent report, where typically district administration presents information to the board or may ask for action items or approval on things that are required for board approval. And then the board's report is really an update on different things and different committees they serve on and sharing information with one another. Board meetings are led by the board president. And we do have board pre-planning meetings as the board president as well to help plan the agendas. So the agendas are co-created between the superintendent and the board president. Roles and responsibilities. The important things to remember is that the Board of Education needs to maintain a global view of the district, that we all have personal experiences, but that we are making decisions in what is the best interest for the entire district. Focus on the what or the district outcomes. How are we measuring? How are we doing? Just like today where we talked about data, the board making sure that we are achieving our promise to educate all of our students. And then governing documents, looking through agendas, budget, CSIP, these are all things that will go in front of the board, evaluating the superintendent, the provisional development plan, these things all require board approval. And then the way a board acts is with their vote. So no single board member has any authority, but as a board, there's a collective authority, and so the votes are by majority. And if there is something that you want to vote no for, that is absolutely okay. That's how you're able to voice your opinion or thoughts. And then providing, as I said at the very beginning, providing direction to me as a superintendent to make sure that I am implementing the strategic plan and the goals of the board to the best of my ability. This I just mentioned, really the authority of the board. As an individual citizen, you don't really have any authority as an individual, but as a school board, you have collective authority, and that is through the voting power. And so as a board member, coming to the board, there may be topics or things that you want to talk about, which you absolutely can bring up, but it is through the entirety of the board to make that decision to have those discussions or bring those forward at a board meeting. It is through the entirety of the board for that agreement. And good news is we all work together very well as a team of 8. To make sure that any questions people have get answered. Candidate filing, this is where Ms. Kate Hastings comes in. Very important person to know. Candidate filing is at Brentwood High School in the district offices, and these are the dates that are available. Filing opens Tuesday, December 9th, and will be open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., so that is the first day to file, and then you can see the hours and the dates that Kate is available. This year, we're very excited that it is not a holiday, And so Tuesday, December 30th, from 1 to 5, we will be available to file, and that is the last date to file this year. And then any resources that you may need, we do have on our website some information that you can find. You can go through Simply, which is a wonderful resource that is also available on the Brentwood website, to go back and look through any past agendas and meeting minutes, as well as presentations, to see kind of what kind of topics we discuss as a board meeting. At that same link, you can access board policies, which is a huge role of the board, which is to approve those policies and make sure that we are following them as a school district. And so those are things that you can look through. And then board member contact information is also on our website. You can also go to the Missouri School Boards Association, MSBA's website. There's lots and lots of information on there. And I would tell you that I think the very best person is Kate Hastings, our board administrative assistant, who can answer any specific questions about filing and will be available. And I know any board member would be willing to meet with anybody who is interested or have questions to talk through the process, as would I. Any questions from the board or anything that this missed that we want to make sure anybody who is watching or is interested in would perhaps want to know?
I think it's very thorough.
Thanks to MSBA.
Good.
Yes, and then people can reach out to us. We're happy to visit and answer any questions.
Please do. Yeah.
Yes. The other thing I thought about is we do have some training opportunities through St. Louis County School District.
Yes.
So they've developed a collaborative, so we are able to work with our neighboring districts when questions come up, and they have trainings, I think, about quarterly, which is a really good resource too. Yeah, lots to learn.
All right,
Thank you.
that is it.
Okay, so that takes us to Board of Education, MSBA delegate report.
That's
I
the
don't.
one.
I'm not able to go to
Quickly
the
looked
meeting,
around.
unfortunately. The meeting, it starts on Thursday, right?
It does.
Okay, and it goes
So
to
we'll,
Saturday.
yeah, we'll bring back
Yeah, the
information.
delegate assembly is Friday afternoon, and you both, so any one of us can do. I, for some reason, have become the official timekeeper for speeches, and I get to ring a bell if somebody's too long.
It's very good.
So, So-
Year after year, I think he's been doing, I mean, this may be like year 3 that you're in charge of that?
I don't seem like forever, I don't know. I just keep hoping I get to ring the bell.
Yeah.
But the main thing that's up for that is the annual revisions to the advocacy positions. And I've talked about this in the past, and I know from questions I got, I probably wasn't a little clear. Somebody might have been listening to me thinking that these are laws that's going to be passed. It's not. It's the MSBA has, and you can find it on their website, they have a whole list of advocacy positions. It's what the MSBA delegates approve, so that the lobbyists are operating from that perspective. In other words, if the advocacy position is to do X, Y, and Z, the lobbyists are supposed to be advocating for X, Y, and Z with the legislature. That's really what it's about. So there's some, and I printed this off, there's some minor little, to me they look like minor changes about, reviewing the foundation formula, extending this as PSRS waiver or something that's been done so that retired teachers can do some teaching, more than they could. They want to continue that. And this is just about promoting legislation that'll do that, and then something about early childhood. And then I think it's Melville. See, districts can, and you get these emails that you can promote, you can ask for these things. Melville's has 3 changes, which to me look like redundant of the existing policy. It's about public funding going to private educational organizations. And anyway, so that's there. The MSBA Advocacy Committee opposes that. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe because they say it's just redundant. I don't know. But the one that's kind of interesting and is going to be controversial and should be is, and this came from Columbia, they want to advocate that the law be changed to prohibit school districts from paying out more than 1 year's salary to a city school district just recently, you owe that whole contract. In Columbia, their explanation, now MSBA says their advocacy committee opposes this, but, yeah, it's Columbia was proposing this, and they're annoyed because they had to pay more than $650,000 in public money to get rid of somebody. And so they said they've included language in their new superintendent contract to limit that payout to 12 months. So I don't know, that's, there's always been these things going on for some reason. It seems like I'm hearing about a lot of them lately, and maybe people are going to start, the job's really hard, I know.
It doesn't offend me. I know, I think this will be an interesting one, because I think that obviously the administrative group will have probably a different stance. But I also believe that there's ways to write contracts different. It's the way the contracts have always been written. So I'm just curious as to how it is a hard job.
I was
And I-
kind of surprised that it came from Columbia.
Me too.
It seemed like, but I think it drives home to the boards, we have to do our job and stay on top of these things. But, if you all of a sudden decide a superintendent is not working out, you're in kind of a box that you got to live with the person for 2 more years, but we just don't want, we're never going to have that problem here.
No, you're not.
That's right.
I know, I give you my word.
So I have a feeling that's going to generate some discussion. I'm not quite sure which way I would vote on it, but.
When you say it, it just makes me feel like it's going to be a very long discussion. Like this
Yeah.
could go on
Yeah.
back and forth. That is the thing. It is a very interesting
And that's
process
why
to be
you
part
want
of.
Katie to be.
That's why I think Katie should do
I feel
it.
like I feel like you just would volunteer.
It's fun.
But the process is very interesting to sit through because you're voting as, you are all representatives of boards across the state and everybody has a vote and it can go back and forth and you are changing language on a screen and you have to vote to decide to discuss, to make a change. I mean, it is like what we do with our rules, but it is a very interesting process.
Legislature.
I am glad we are a team of 8 and not a team of 400.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, and I'm glad we do it.
That one would be, it'll be an interesting discussion, and I guess technically, anyone from our board can be the delegate, even me, I assume if I say I'm on I have to be the timekeeper, but I also need to be the delegate. I can do that, but I think I wanted you to do that. So, I tend to be opposed to that change. I think it's kind of unnecessary to have this. And again, this is telling our lobbyists to advocate with the legislatures to try and get them to pass a law to say that we can't do this. And that's why I'm kind of against it. This is kind of our business. It's really not the state legislature's business in my view. So, that would be the way I would look at it. But anyway, so it might be interesting. And it's too bad you're missing it, Mark.
So if it's not a law and districts are allowed to write their contracts differently, could you, the second year into a 3-year contract, when it's up for renewal, could you not extend it for 3
That's
years?
what you're supposed to do. Yeah. If you don't, you haven't been on the board too long, but every year you decide whether to extend the contract or not. And if you say to the superintendent, we're not extending it, then, the superintendent is still there.
Right.
And then that's a message of lack of confidence.
What is the historical context landing on 3 years? Because 2 makes sense, that you're always like a year ahead, because then you
I
can
do
extend
not
or
know
not
that-
extend, and it's a year lag. Why the 3? That
It's
doesn't-
always been 3 since I've been involved. Why it got that way, I really don't know.
I don't either, it's just always been what I've known it to be too, but I don't know why, I have no idea why.
As an outsider.
I wonder if it has to do with 3 years as a term of a board. So your entire board can roll over in 3 years' time.
So that
And so there's like some political, I think the challenge with this job is that your bosses could change who you signed up for and and their direction and their, so I think I think the purpose is to help provide superintendents with some stability,
Okay.
knowing that if the board changes over, there's some level of continuity
Okay.
for a little bit.
That makes sense.
But that's a thought,
Yeah.
but I don't know for
That
sure if
makes a lot
that's
of
true.
sense.
That makes sense. And, you know, it's a custom. We don't have to do
Yeah.
this, you know. We don't have to do a 3-year
It's kind of law.
contracts, but then I think we have fewer applicants, you know, because
Yeah.
I would think that, you know, folks who, you know, maybe go somewhere else or something like that, but.
You're stuck with me.
But that's just kind of the way the custom is, and obviously Columbia, according to its explanation, they went ahead and changed what they're doing. And so, maybe it's a 3-year contract, but they're saying they don't have to be out more than a year, which is kind of, you know, that's kind of talking on both sides of their mouths, I suppose, but there's no reason you can't do that, you can do whatever you want. It's interesting, but this is just maybe a lively discussion on Friday and then come to naught, but who knows.
Great, thank you. Anything from SSD since our last meeting?
Nope.
Okay.
Next meeting is December 1st.
Great, and then board committee updates. I know that we have a teaching and learning date is being discussed for that committee, so that we'll get back.
We did also, we have, I think it was like 15 people that have asked to be joining, and so we'll be reaching out to them. We think everybody should be able to get their first choice of committees they asked to serve on. We went through and looked at that at the cabinet meeting last week. Oh, no, it was 17 people. So wonderful that there are people who want to be a part, and it's pretty much, no offense to Matt, other than finance, there's a lot of, people were interested in a lot of different things and very excited, so it's great that people want to be a part of the conversations of what's happening in the district, so very happy to welcome them. So if you haven't heard, you will be hearing very soon from the leaders of your board advisory, or any community members that have added will be getting.
Great. Okay, so meetings to come. Anything from 353 redevelopment?
No news.
Okay. And then just upcoming events. Man, it is that time of the year when they go all the way through December. Aye.
Wow.
So you can just see our upcoming policy and business meetings there. As mentioned earlier, school board candidate filing opens on Tuesday, December 9th, closes on the 30th, and our fun event, staff winter break open house. It's always great. So Tuesday, December 16th at 3:30 at McGraw. And that is it. If I could have a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and we will have roll call.
Mark Cicero,
Yes.
Katie Clark,
Yes.
Ryan Dotson, Brian Flynn,
Yes.
Steve Ravenberg,
Yes.
Katie Small,
Yes.
Lindsey Plesser.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight.
Yes, thank you.
And your presentations.
Very good.
Very good. Yes.
Fine.
I really want to go to that meeting.
See you guys Thursday.
I said I really want to go.
Just dinner.
Not this year, but Mark has already told me I'm going next year.
Just dinner.
I'm gonna-
Charles is hosting a
I
dinner
wanna
on
go next year.
Thursday.
Yeah.
This year, just,
And then we're just gonna Friday.
It's first year, right, though,
Right, you
October
can
is-
look.
it's a,
Yeah.
It is.
Download the app.
Yep.
And then you can.
Ways
But that's always what it is, right, Keith? It's always on home.